Every culture has a word for the journey into darkness. The Greeks called it Katabasis, the descent into the underworld. It's Orpheus with his lyre, Aeneas with his duty, Dante with his Virgil. And now, it's Alice Law. Not through myth or flame, but through the ash and bureaucracy of Cambridge University. R.F. Kuang's Katabasis is a novel of chalk circles, paradoxes, toxic mentors, and haunted memory. It's heavy, it's relentless, and it doesn't just ask you to read it. It dares you to survive it. It sounds absurd, doesn't it? Risking half your lifespan for a recommendation letter. But if you've ever lived in academia, you know it's not absurd at all. It's a Tuesday. Alice Law is a postgraduate student in analytic magic, a field so obscure it's basically philosophy with chalk dust. Her advisor, Professor Jacob Grimes, is a genius, a tyrant, and an emotional black hole. When he dies in a magical accident, possibly Alice's fault, his soul plummets into hell. Alice decides to follow. Not because she loved him, but because without his recommendation, her career is over. That's the true horror of grad school. You'd rather storm the gates of hell than risk unemployment. And of course, who shows up at the chalk circle? Peter Murdoch, her rival, the golden boy of the department. Brilliant, charming, effortlessly admired. Naturally, he insists on joining. Together, they step into the 8 courts of hell, armed with paradoxes, chalk, and more baggage than a philosophy department faculty meeting. So, what does hell look like? Not fire, not brimstone, something worse. Peer review. The first court is a library where souls must define the good for eternity. Fail, and you're bronzed into a statue. The perfect torture for scholars, condemned to chase an impossible definition until they ossify. Later they drift to the river Lethe, the river of forgetting. For Alice, altered by Grimes's experiment to remember everything, its waters whisper sweet relief. Imagine a mind that replays every humiliation, every failure in high definition. The Lethe is tempting because oblivion sounds like peace. And everywhere in hell, the rules of magic break down. Chalk fizzles, logic collapses. The very tools they trusted betray them, which, let's be honest, feels about right for graduate school. Here's the thing. Kuang isn't just telling a story. She's staging an argument. Toxic academia. She doesn't imply that academia is harsh. She declares it's hell. Supervisors exploit. Departments pit students against each other. The system feeds on youth, then spits out the husks. Memory and identity. Alice's perfect recall isn't natural. It was placed on her, a mark of her professor's control. The gift of never forgetting becomes a punishment. The Lethe offers the opposite, mercy through oblivion. The question lingers, are we ourselves because we remember? Or would forgetting finally set us free? Ambition versus humanity. Grimes is the cautionary tale, brilliance unmoored from compassion. Alice and Peter must decide whether survival is worth more than genius. Reality as paradox. The magic system runs on contradictions. Take the hangman's paradox. A prisoner will be hanged on a day he doesn't expect. But if he predicts it, it ceases to be unexpected. The logic collapses, and so does reality. Kuang's point? We are all contradictions, pretending we're coherent. Let's talk about the cast. And don't think of them as mere characters, they're allegories. Alice Law, Brilliant, brittle, desperate to prove herself. Thanks to an experiment by Grimes, she carries a mark. A magical circle that forces her to remember everything. Every lecture, every slight, every failure, replayed in relentless detail. Useful for exams, excruciating for life. Peter Murdoch. At first glance, a Cambridge poster child, tall, clever, magnetic. Look closer. Behind the polish is frailty, a chronic illness and a guilt that gnaws. He's less a rival than a mirror Alice can't stop staring into. Jacob Grimes, the tyrant, the genius, the ghost. Not a mentor, but a predator, dressed in academic robes. Even dead, he exerts gravity. He's the kind of man who believes cruelty equals rigor. And for Alice and Peter, his shadow is inescapable. Elspeth Bayes, the ferryman. Once a scholar, now ferrying souls across the Lethe. Cynical, funny in a grim way. She's proof you can survive academia, but only by becoming part of its underworld. Together they form a taxonomy of damage. The exploited, the golden child, the abuser, the survivor. Kuang doesn't give you characters. She gives you archetypes, stripped bare in the inferno. Now, every descent into hell has its pitfalls. And so does this book. The strengths? They're sharp enough to cut. The satire is surgical. Kuang takes academia apart with the precision of a scalpel. And the magic system? Forget fireballs. This is intellectual combat, paradox as weapon, logic turned into spell work. The dialogue crackles, venomous and witty, like a debate you can't look away from. But yes, there are weaknesses. The Kripkes, a family of bone-hungry magicians, sometimes feel like they wandered in from a horror B-movie. The Dialethea true contradiction MacGuffin doesn't always convince. And the middle third, it drowns in name-dropping. Foucault, Lacan, paradoxes. If those references thrill you, you'll devour it. If not, you'll start skimming. I won't spoil every turn. But if Babel ended in fire, Katabasis ends in something harder. Survival. The real climax isn't about winning, it's about rejecting. Alice learns that freedom is not validation, not power, not even victory. It's choosing to keep living, scars and all. So, is this book brilliant or unbearable? Honestly, it's both. And that's the fascination. When Foucault and Lacan popped up, I grinned. It was like finding old friends in the footnotes of hell. But the mathematical references and paradoxes, they flew right over my head. And that's the thing. Kuang isn't calibrating for comfort. She's daring you to stretch. For some, that's intoxicating. For others, exhausting. Her critics often say she lectures or shows off. In Babel, that tone was sharp, even scathing. In Katabasis, it's softened, but not gone. And honestly, that's the point. This book feels personal, even venomous. When you finish it, you don't just think Kuang dislikes academia. You feel she hates it with all her heart. That rawness is the true catharsis. Not the tidy release of a neat ending, but the howl of someone who refuses to soften. And whether you love it or loathe it, you'll feel it. So yes, I recommend Katabasis. Not because it's easy, but because it's unforgettable. Would you follow your professor into hell for a recommendation letter? Or would you finally leave him there grading papers for eternity? And while you are here, what book should we tackle next? Something heavy and complex like Babel or The Secret History? Another dark academia descent? Or maybe something totally different to cleanse the palate? Drop your suggestions in the comments. I'd love to hear what worlds you want us to dive into. Until next time.